Okay, so this week's broadcast is sponsored by Mrs. Yal Beagle in memory of her father Max Maman Allah Shalom, Machluf and Elio, whose yahrzeit is Chof Aleph Nisan. Tehei Nishmasai Tzura Chaim. Let's see the Heilige Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan. Avshalom B'Sarai Morad. Avshalom rebelled against David HaMelech with his hair. Give me one moment to get it. Avshalom rebelled with his hair. Look, Avshalom, and like Avshalom, Loi Haya Ish Yafeh. There was no one as good looking as Avshalom. He was strikingly good looking. Ubegal Chayas Roishai, and when he cut his hair, the pasuk elaborates. He had huge hair, huge, beautiful hair. So let's see. Avshalom Loi Haya Ish Yafeh B'Chol Yisrael leHalel Ma'od. The kaf ragle bat katkade, from his foot until his head, he was very good looking. Lahaya baimel, he was perfect. He was an icon of perfection. And when you would shave his head, and from time to time when he would shave, ki chaved olav, because his hair grew long and it was heavy. It weighed 200 shkolim. I guess that was an enormous growth. She had big, beautiful hair. So state in the Heilige Gemara. Tana, Even sha'anshe tferya va'anshe tzipari sheichel ba. There was some type of stone that was used as a counterweight, and it's that stone that they used that his hair weighed 250. Lefichach nitla b'sayrei. And as we learned, that's how his demise came. He hung from his hair. Shenemar, vayikra Avshalom lifnei Avdei David. Avshalom called to Avdei David. Avshalom roichev al aperet. He was riding a mule. Vayovei aperet tachas shoivech ha'elah hagedolah. He came underneath this tree. I'm going to read it in the pasuk here. Vayachzak roishay ba'elah. His head somehow got stuck. His hair got stuck in the tree. Vayitein bein hashemayim. Let me see if I can read this better. Vayutan bein hashemayim u'bein haaretz. I guess he got snapped by his hair, and now he was hanging from his hair. Va'peret asher tachtov, and the mule that was underneath him passed. So basically, he's riding under this tree with the mule. His hair gets caught, and the mule keeps on going, but he remains suspended in the air. Shokal Safsira. He took a sword, boy lemifsika, he wanted to cut his hair to free himself from being trapped in the tree. Turn to the baby Shmuel, the Oysa Shah, at that time, Nifka Sha'oil Mitachtom. Let me just see the Bach in Ois Hey. Oysa Ra Gehinim Nifka Mitachtom. He saw that it wasn't looking too good. He saw that Gehenim was there underneath him. Vayirgas HaMelech, Ayal Aliyas Ashar. So let's look at the pasuk inside, how David reacted to the tragedy of his son being killed. Vayirgas HaMelech, Ayal Aliyas Ashar, Vayek, he cried. And this is what he said as he was walking. B'ni Avshalom, B'ni Avshalom. Musi ani tachtecha Avshalom b'ni b'ni. This is 5 times that he said Avshalom b'ni, or he used the word b'ni 5 times, and then he went on. Avshalom lokach v'yatzav lo b'chayav es matzeva. No, I'm sorry. V'hamelach lat as pana v'yizak hamelach koil gado b'ni Avshalom b'ni b'ni, which is a total of 8 times that he mentioned the word b'ni. So Zok to Gemara, Hani Tamanya B'ni Lama. Why did David HaMelech mention the word B'ni 8 times? Zok to Gemara, Shiva, the Aske, Mishiva Madura Gehen. The 7 times that he mentioned the word B'ni is to lift him out of the 7 levels of Gehenim, whatever that means. The 8th and the 8th time, Ikada Amri the Karv Reshi Lagav Gufe. What happened was when he was killed, If his head rolled in one direction, his body in a different direction, and they weren't even buried together. So at least this caused that his head should move to his body and they should be buried together. Not only was David HaMelech able to draw Avshalom out of Gehenim, he was actually able to get him into Gan Eden. Now we know when we go to Eretz Yisrael, if you look down into the valley between Har Habayis and Har Zeisim, you see that monument Yad Avshalom. And it just ends in a point on top. Supposedly, it used to have a fist, as if to show defiance. That came off eventually. But Avshalom built this monument of defiance where eventually he was buried. Avshalom Lokach, he took a Yatzav Loy B'chayav, and he stood up in his lifetime. Now, if he set up and he built the monument, what do you mean he took a monument? Took means something that was there already. My Lokach, what does it mean that he took? Zog to Gemara, what it means is he bought himself a bad deal. He bought himself a bad deal by being defiant towards his father and towards the Rebbeinu Shalom. Es matzeves asher be'emek hamelech, referring to this Yad Avshalom that was in the valley. Omer Reb Chanina bar Papa, the Eitza Amuka shel Malka shel Olam. It was the deep Eitza of the Melech of the world, as Rashi says here. Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu shu Melech Olam shegozer al David came b'Maisa b'Sheva. What was the root of the reason why Avshalom rebelled? That was all because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was goyzer his punishment upon David HaMelech when he had the incident. I'm not going to use the word choite. When he had the incident with Bathsheba. If I'm not mistaken, there's a very famous story with the Chaim Shmulevitz. Klal Yisrael was in that nice tzara, and he went down to daven, of all places, by Yad Avshalom. Can you imagine? Normally you go to daven by a kever of a tzaddik. He went to Yad Avshalom, and he said, Rebbeinu Shalom, look at how you're supposed to treat a son. David HaMelech, whose son rebelled against him, wanted to kill him and violate him. Yet, David cared about him so much, he said, B'ni, to bring him into Gan Eden. Us, we're your children, Rebbeinu Shalom. Learn from David and Avshalom that no matter what we did, we're still your children, and you should redeem us and save us. I believe this occurred during one of the wars. I'm not sure if it was the Yom Kippur War or the 67 War, but I believe this story happened around then. It says in the pasuk, when David HaMelech had the incident with Bathsheba, Hineni make him alecha ra mi beischa. I'm going to bring bad to you from your own household. You find elsewhere, it says, Vayishalcheyu me'emek chevron. So let's see the pasuk inside. The pasuk says, in Beis, Vayiven Sham. Oh, it's in Yud Gimel. So I guess it's going back to here. Where's the Beis? Oh, here's the Beis. It says over here, Vayomer loy, Lech na re'eh shloim achecha. This is speaking about Yaakov sending Yosy. Vesh shloim atzoin. Vashiveni davar, and then come back to me, Yosef, and tell me what you saw. Vayishalcheyu me'emek Chevron v'yavei Shechema. Yaakov sent Joseph from the depth of Chevron, and he went to Shechem looking for his brothers. Amar Reb Chanina bar Papa, the Eitza Amuka shel Oishet Tzadik shekaver b'Chevron. This is once again, what does the emek mean? It's referring to the deep Eitza of that Tzadik, referring to Avraham Avinu, who was buried in Chevron. Basically, it was part of the plan to get Klal Yisrael to go down to Mitzrayim. It all started off with the Mechira of Yosef. Hashem told Avraham Avinu, you should know. We learned this we said this in the Agada, so we could say that the Lublina strikes again. Higer yiyeh zaracha. Your children will be a ger. The Amar. Now we're going back to Avshalom. Avshalom, why did he build this monument? Ki Amar ein li ben. He said, I don't have any children, so I'm building this monument to perpetuate my name. Well, are you telling me that Avshalom never had children? It says in the pasuk, it says in fact that he had 3 sons and 1 daughter. Sure, he had children, but he didn't have children that would be appropriate to take over his kingdom. We learned, one who burns the tvu of his friend, meaning he takes the hard work and the toiling and the sweat and blood of his friend and he destroys it. He will not be zoichet to have a child to be yorish mida connected mida. Where does someone put more effort than into his own children? So a person works so hard to have children, to raise children, and then there's nothing left of them. And that's the mida connected mida. The EU, where do you find that Absalom burned down the tfu of his friend? And that's why he wasn't zoichet to keep his children. The ilu kalye l'di Yoav. He burnt Yoav, who was the general of David HaMelech. He burned Yoav's field down. The chsiv, he was trying to get Yoav to come to him so he can convince Yoav to make some type of peace between him and his father, and Yoav didn't want to get involved. So he told his avodim, Absalom told his avodim, let's get Yoav's attention. And there has a beautiful field of barley. Burn it all down. That'll get his attention. So as an oynish for that, Mida connected Mida, although he had children, they were not able to take over his malchus. Zok the Mishnah, the same way you find the Mida connected Mida by Ra, how Absalom got punished with his hair and how Shimshon got punished with his eyes. You find Toiva as well, Miriam, who waited for Moshe Rabbeinu in the basket in the river. Klal Yisrael waited for her 7 days, which Yatzaras. How could you compare them? She waited a little while. Doesn't literally mean 1 hour. She waited a little while for her brother. Rather here, they waited for 7 days. That's not exactly the same. She seems to have been repaid in a much greater quantity than what she gave. Amar Abaye, Ema, this is what you should say. Not like we read in our Mishnah that Atava is just like punishment. Rather, it's not the same. By punishment, you get Mida connected Mida. By pay, you get more than what you did. Amalei Rava, how could you say that? The words of the Mishnah say otherwise. The Mishnah says it's the same way. The similarity between Hatava and Ra is that it's a similar payback, but the quantity might be different. And now we're going to drill down into the story about Miriam waiting to watch Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu's sister waited from a distance to watch Amr Rabbi Yitzchak. And let's read the whole pasuk because the Gemara is going to break this pasuk down word by word, phrase by phrase, and darshan it. The beautiful pasuk. Zokt the heilige pasuk as follows. It says, she stood from a distance, l'deya, to know ma yasaloi, what will happen with Moshe Rabbeinu. Zok to Gemara, Amr Rabbi Yitzchak, pasuk zeh kuloi al shem shchina nemar. Every word in the pasuk is referring to the shchina. That means the shchina was with Moshe Rabbeinu at every moment. Vatesatzav. The word Vatesatzav is referring to the shchina. Yichsiv vayovei Hashem vayisyatzei. Again, it's referring to the shchina. Achoisoi. Yichsiv emor la chachma achoisiyat. Chachma says, "You're my sister." So Zok Rashi. Hashem yitein chachma mipiv das asfuna. So once again, chachma is referring to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Meirachai. She stood from a distance. Tichsiv meirachai Hashem nirali. Meirachai Hashem nirali. Once again, it's referring to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Ledeya is what the pasuk says. Ledeya mayatzalah. Ledeya tichsiv kikeil deis Hashem. Ma. Right, ma ye'asalai. Ma d'chsiv ma Hashem alekecha shoyel mimcha meimcha Yeyasa, the Ksiv, Klo Yasa, Hashem Elakim Dover, Loy. Dover, comma. And the Loy, the Ksiv, Vayikra Loy Hashem Shalom. So every single word of that pasuk is a remez to HaKadosh Baruch Hu watching over Moshe Rabbeinu and being with Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, now we're going to get into Parsha Shmois, back to the story of the Yidden in Mitzrayim. It says in the pasuk, "Vayokam melech chodesh al Mitzrayim, asher lo yada es Yosef." Let me see if I can find the pasuk. It says, "Vayokam melech chodesh al Mitzrayim, asher lo yada es Yosef." Rabbi Shmuel, Chadomer chodesh mamish. There was a new king. There was actually a new king. Chadomer shneschachu gizei roisav. He wasn't really new, but he changed his attitude and he changed his policies. Mandamer chadash mamish diksiv chadash. Chadash means new. Mandamer shneschachu gizei roisav. The like sivayamas fiyamach. It never mentions that another king died. So if it just says Vayokam melech chodesh without talking about a melech dying, that means that in fact the melech changed his attitude. There's actually a shiloh halacha. If you make a contract with somebody that you're selling him a new house, and it turns out that you didn't sell him a new house, it was just a refurbished house, it was a renovated house, is that called chodesh? Did you fulfill your contract? There's a halacha that mi shabana bayis chodesh v'loy chanachoi yelech b'yashav l'beitro. If there's a war, he doesn't go to war because he has a new house. What if he did a major renovation? Would that count? So this is actually a shiloh halacha based on this Gemara. If chodesh means new, thank you very much. If chodesh means new, or if chodesh could even mean fully renovated. Asher lo yoda as Yosef. What does it mean? The king didn't know Yosef. The have a dummy command lo yoda le klal. In Yiddish they say nicht wissen de gemach. He may believe he didn't know Yosef. I'm sorry. Done very good. The have a dummy. He played dummy. The have a dummy command lo yoda le klal. The king got up and spoke to his nation. Hine am b'nei Yisrael. Again, let's look inside so we can see the whole pasuk. V'yomer el amo hine am b'nei Yisrael rav v'otzim imenu. These Jews are stronger and greater than us, so we need to figure out how we can defend them. Tana, who hischol ba'etzat chila? It was his idea. It wasn't like there was a grassroots movement to get rid of Klal Yisrael. It was the king Paro who instigated this anti-Semitism. Therefore, he was punished for it. Who is chil ba'etzat chila? How do you see that? Ichsev hayomer al amoy. Avicha chalakat chila k'dichsev ubecha ube'amcha ubechol avodecha. It started with him. What did he say? Hava nischak maloi. Let's think about him. Let's get smarter over him. What do you mean over him? He was referring to all of the nation of Klal Yisrael. Lehemi boyle. What he should have said was Hava nischak malahem. Let's figure out how to deal with them. What he meant was, let's see if we can outsmart the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's what he was talking about. So let's think. We have to punish them and get rid of them, but we don't want to use anything that can boomerang upon us and backfire. So let's be careful. As Rashi says, that Hashem won't be able to punish us back with Midah Keneged Midah, because he had enough experience to realize we already know how HaKadosh Baruch Hu works, because we already learned the Gemara Sotah. Midah Keneged Midah in the history books, they already saw that HaKadosh Baruch Hu punishes Midah Keneged Midah. So we need to pick something where we're not going to be able to get hit back. Nidayin be'esh, if we try burning them, Hashem can come and get us back with punishment. So therefore, he's going to pay us back that way. If we want to kill out the Jews with swords, that's too dangerous as well. Let's kill them with water. Why will that be safe? After the Mabul, HaKadosh Baruch Hu swore to the world that he will no longer bring a Mabul to the world. Shenemar, Himei Noach Zois Li, and let's see the rest of the pasuk. The pasuk says, Himei Noach Zois Li, Asher Nishpati, Mei Avor Mei Noach Oid Halaoret. I swore not to bring Mei Noach again, Kinishbati Niktoif Alecha Megarbach. I will not kill you out with a mabel. But what they didn't understand is the detail of what the commitment of a Rebbeinu Shalom was. V'hein enim yoidim shall kala olam kuloi enim mevi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said he will no longer destroy all of the world with a mabel. But that doesn't mean he can't provide a local tsunami. Aval uma achas hu mevi. So that was a miscalculation. And in fact, that was a big mistake. Inami, or maybe there's another difference between the commitment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made versus what eventually the Mitzrayim suffered with. Inami, hu eine maybe. Hashem will not bring a tsunami and kill a nation out. Hashem didn't drown out the Mitzrayim. They jumped into the ocean. They asked for it. So Hashem wouldn't have brought the Yam out of the Red Sea and killed the whole nation, but they came into the Red Sea. They were running to the Yam. So let's see the whole pasuk inside. Yisro said, Yisro realized that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was the emes to the Rebbeinu Shalom. How do I know? I know because of the plans that the Goyim made to do to the Yidden that never reached fruition. Yisro had inside information that could be Klal Yisrael wasn't even aware of. In the pot that they wanted to cook, they wanted to cook and destroy Klal Yisrael. They got burnt with their own pot. My mashma, the high zodu listed the kterahu. Who said zodu is zodu? What they were cooking up. How do you know zodu means a pot? When Yaakov bought the brachas from Esav, he bought it with something that he cooked up. So you see the word zodu, even though the literal touch of zodu is that they've been made, they purposely wanted to hurt them, but it also is a reference to cooking up something. When Paroi was contemplating and conspiring and planning to kill out Klal Yisrael, there were three great advisors that were in that cabinet meeting, and unfortunately, they were not privileged with cabinet privilege and cabinet secrecy, because the Gemara is broadcasting to the world what went on in that cabinet meeting. Who were there? Bilam, the Eiv, the Yisrael. These three people were there. Bilam Shayotz, Bilam the Bahaima, he gave eitzes that they should destroy Klal Yisrael. What was his end? Nerag, he got killed. Eiv Shesasak, Eiv didn't say anything. Nidim be Yisurim, he had Yisurim. So they asked, wasn't the Deutsch Schlecht was at Katan? He didn't say anything. He didn't vote. Why would he get punished so badly? So there's two different pshatim that they say. One pshat that they say is, if it bothers you that Yidden are getting hurt when you put your finger into the fire and it burns, mishrayit. You don't hold in. If it hurts you, you cry out. Why didn't Eiv cry out? And Yisro, Shabarach, Yisro ran away. Zachu mibnei Ivanav, he was zoicha from his grandchildren, sheyasfu belishkas kagazes. Well, then the question is, he ran away. He was a coward. Why didn't he protest? Why is he get such a schus just for running away? So they say pshat is, what do you mean he ran away? First, he protested and said, this is not a good idea. And when he saw Pari's reaction, he knew his goose was cooked. So then he got up and ran away. So he ran away because he had already expressed support for the Eden. That's one pshat. Other pshat is, we know that when there's no quorum, they cannot take a vote to make a decision. So Yisro ran away, so there shouldn't be a quorum, so that in the meeting, they wouldn't be able to vote to put the harsh gzeres on Klal Yisrael. Shenemar, how do we know that the grandchildren of Yisro were zoicha to be on the lishkas of Moses? Because it says in Mishpachai Seifrim, Yosh ve'yavetz, Peratim, Shematim, Suchsim, Heima Hakinim, Aboyim, Machmas, Avi Beis Rechet. Let's see the pasuk inside because I probably didn't pronounce it properly. It says Umishpachai Seifrim, Yosh ve'yavetz, Tir-osim, Shim-osim, Shoivosim, Hema Hakinim Haboyim Machmas Avi Beis Rechet. Zokt Rashi, what does this mean? Zokt Heilige Rashi, Yosh ve'Yavitz. What does Yosh ve'Yavitz means? Talmidei Yavitz, which means there were Talmidim of Yavitz. Adam Gadol B'Tayr Haya. He was an Adam Gadol. Let's see the Bach in Ois Beis. Zok the Bach, Yavitz Adam Gadol, he was a great Yid. Adam Gadol Torah K'Dichsiv, Vayikra Yavitz Palekei Yisrael, in Baruch Tevrecheni B'Torah. I'm sorry? Lamor, okay. Where's the word Lamor? Palekei Yisrael Lamor? In Baruch Tevrecheni B'Torah, V'Rbeis Eskavuli B'Talmidim, V'Yaver Lekim Mashashol. So basically, Yavitz became a big Rosh Hashiva. Terasim, the Farish B'Safri, Sheshamu Trua B'Har Sinai, Lishnachrina Teratim Al Shem Shayu Yoshvim B'Shara Yushalayim, referring to the Sanhedrin. Well, in the second pshat it means a door. In the first pshat it means Sheshamu Trua B'Har Sinai, and Shemata means Sheshamu Mitzvahs Avim. They hear the mitzvah of their father. The Bivnei Yoinadav Ben Rechev Mishtoy Kra. The pasuk is referring to the children of Yoinadav. And they were from the grandchildren of Yisrael. These were the Kinim. As Al Shem show you Yoshvim Besukos. One of the nations. Al Shem show you Yoshvim Besukos could live. The nation by Holim, Bekaralu, Mishpacha, Soifrim, Daniel Sanhedrin. So all of these words in the pasuk are used to refer to members of the Sanhedrin. And we know that these were Yisroi. Let's have a look at the last pasuk. The last pasuk, it says, Uksiv uvnei keni Moshe, which you just referred to, which Chaim just referred to. So you see, these people who were members of the Sanhedrin were from Yisroi's Einik. Why? Because he did what he could do to prevent the terrible Gzeira on Klal Yisrael, even though he didn't succeed. But he gets beautiful schar for trying. V'nilcham banu v'alam in the Haaretz. What do you mean v'alah? And they will leave the land. V'alinam libayilei. The right wording would be, and we will be forced to evacuate Mitzrayim, not Klal Yisrael. So what's the lashon of v'alah? Gemara Amar Abba Bakana to Adam shemikala l'satzmai. When someone is talking about something that's happening bad to himself, but he doesn't want to actually even verbalize it, articulate it about himself, the toilah kilalasai b'chaveirei. But Yasimu olav sarei misim. That's right. That's right. But Yasimu olav sarei misim. They put upon them sarei misim. What do you mean olav on him? We're talking about a whole nation of Klal Yisrael. Alahem ibaylei. They took a brick. They told the Paribitzavari, and they put it on Paro's neck. Why? Because they want to show. You want to be a nationalist? You want to show loyalty? We're all going to get in this together. So when they saw that Paro was working, the Jews always want to show Ich bin ein Berliner. Like the Meshach Chochmah said, when we say Ich bin ein Berliner, when the Jews are more loyal to Berlin, they feel like they're a Berliner. The Meshach Chochmah, 30, 40 years before the Holocaust, he actually predicted the Holocaust because people were saying, Ich bin ein Berliner. I'm a Berliner. When people identify with their host nation, that's a recipe for trouble. If Klal Yisrael said, listen, I'm a bookie, I'm a professional, I'm a lawyer. I don't do this type of work. This type of work is not for me. I'm sorry? I'm not a blue collar, I'm a white collar guy, right? If they said that, they would answer, you're not going to work because you're an engineer, you're a white collar, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer. No. Could you be a bigger isness than Pari? And even Pari is rolling up his sleeves and getting down and dirty. If you want to show loyalty, this is how we do it. I remember when I was in Lakewood, we hired a goiter. So my wife told the goiter to wash the floor. So the goiter says, no, I work in office, and she shows us her nails. I said, if you work in office, go back to your office. I'm not paying you to sit there and tell me that you need to do your nails. Sarah Misim, Davar Shemesim. Sarah Misim is Davar Shemesim. Zokt Rashi, Davar Shemesim Ridui Shel Shuma. Shemargilin Umasim Lavoida. It's perfect. It's something that seasons people to do the work. What it did was, it induced Klal Yisrael to also get down and dirty to work. It seasoned them, it conditioned them. To torture them with the hard work. Laman Anoisam, once again, it keeps on using a Lashon Yochid the Torah when we're speaking about a rabbim. Laman Anoisam Ibailei. Dr. Gemara, Laman Anoisoi Leparoi, this of Lashon the Yisrael. They wanted to torture Paro with hard work, to use Paro as an example. If Paro himself can do it, and this type of a labor is not beneath Paro, let me see you Jews, how loyal you are to this country. Are you also going to be as loyal to the country as the king himself? Oh, so it only looked like a brick. Aha. Right. You're here for the photo op, exactly. But it was very true. Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what this is. That's exactly what this is. This was Pari with a typical liberal, fake, phony, fraudulent photo op. Exactly what it is. But even our miscanized Lapari, this is not our commentary, Danny. This is the Gemara. They're stating the Gemara. But even our miscanized Lapari, Rabbi Shmuel Partach, what are these our miscanized? Chadam Shemesachnois is Balayim. It's dangerous. Why shall you day oisin ha'arim va'oisa avoida nistaknu mitzrayim litava b'yam? That led ultimately to the downfall of Mitzrayim. The Chadamar Shemesachnois es Balayim, which means medaldelois. We learned by the Lila yesterday, it means to uproot them. It ended up causing them to get emptied out. This happened because the reason why they were depleted from everything was because of this avodah. Aha. Oh, medaldelois lashon dal, not lashon shakli. Okay, thank you. You're right. I hear it. Ulahai lishna loy garsinin the Amar Makalo Isaac Bebinyan Mismaskin, because it has nothing to do with Isaac Bebinyan. It has all to do with the punishment that Hashem gave them. Man, the Goris, so we'll see the Gemara weiter. The Amar Makalo Isaac Bebinyan Mismaskin. Whenever this is such a gewaltige lesson, whenever you build, Chaim, you can tell us that. At the end of your building, you always tell yourself, I could have done it 1,000,000 times better and 1,000,000 times cheaper than I actually did it. Anyone who builds always goes over budget. He always becomes poor because there's always cost overruns in construction. Uman the Goris Labatakamin Lahak the Rabbi Shmuel Nami Akol Binyanim Shalodam. This applies to anytime someone builds. Misachnosh means Pamim Shenoifel Me'abininu Meis. When someone builds, sometimes there's an accident. Mimaskanois, it makes him poor. Shemevi is Adam Deanias. Why? Because there's always cost overrun. As Pisaim Ves Ramsais. Rabbi Shmuel, Chadamar Pisaim Shema. Really, the name of the city was Pisaim. Valama Nikmar Shema Ramsais. Why was it referred to with the word Ramsais? Sharisha and Risha and Misraises, meaning Kishayu Boinin Ksasai Misraises V'Neufel. V'Chayju Boinin V'Neufel. They kept on building and they kept on collapsing. It didn't have a proper footing. It didn't have a proper soil underneath it to support the building. So it, by design, kept on falling in. And I think from the Vision Rebbe, that said part of what we were in the triumph for is to prep us to be eaten. We know as a Yid, there's a rule. Lo yalecha malacha ligmar v'yata b'nchayin libatam imena. You have to do something even if you don't see that it could succeed. That's a very hard thing to do. We were seasoned and conditioned to be able to do that in Mitzrayim. The Chadam Ramsay Shema, really it was called Ramses, but it was referred to as Pisaim, as Pisaim, Rishain, Pisaim Bailai. Once again, as they tried to build it, it kept on collapsing. The more they tried punishing Klal Yisrael, the greater and the stronger they became. Once again, why the Lashon Yochid? It should be a Lashon Rabbim. It wasn't not saying a story. It's V'chashayanu Baruch says Yirba v'Yifrod. Hashem said, "Ken Yirba v'Yifrod." Continue to grow, continue to become plentiful. By Yakutsu, b'Pnei Bnei Yisrael, they were like thorns in their eyes. Malamed shayu doimin b'neim kakutim. There were so many Jews around, the goyim couldn't handle it. and it looked as they saw Klal Yisrael multiplying, it was like kutzim. If you go into any municipality meeting when the Jews move into a neighborhood and they start wanting to make shuls, that's the same attitude that they have until they use U.S. law to force them to allow houses of worship. Because the goyim, they look at Yidden like they're like thorns that are ruining their neighborhood. Pricks. Yeah. Vayividu Mitzrayim is Bnei Yisrael b'forach. The Mitzrayim made Klal Yisrael work b'forach. I kind of what that means is, Yidden have to travel to New York for simchas, for mitzvahs. So Vayividu Mitzrayim is b'forachs. In half the 9 out of 10 furachs. We have to for dirt in order to be able to do our mitzvahs. But that's just a play on words. Rabbi Lezer means b'perach, meaning moshchem b'dvarim u'b'schar atcher gilim lavoida. They weren't oppressed right away. Come work with us. We're going to work together with you. Power is working, and it was friendly. It was camaraderie. That's how they lured Klal Yisrael in. Rabbi Shmuel ben Nachmani Amar b'pricha b'shivra and guf u'masnayim. No way, it was not nice. They gave him back-breaking labor. These are the words that we just typed when we read the Haggadah. Originally, they were given chaymer ubelvenim to do their work. But at the end, it was b'chol avodah b'sotah because they were forced. So Rashi says, that was harder for them because it wasn't something that they're used to. They would make the men do what typically is work that would be done by women, and they would make the women do typically work that was done by men, which made it extra hard. And again, I think I saw from the Vision Rebbe, Klal Yisrael sometimes have to go against their nature. They have to have azus. They have to kill a molech. That goes against their nature. How are we able to do that? Again, this is what we were seasoned to do things against their nature in the tribe. And if you hold that the perach means the perach, when we're talking about that for sure has to be prepricha. Let's see Rashi. The perach kama or the perach high the perach baster vade pricha yiksiv v'yimaru. So it says it twice. When it says v'yimaru chayayim, there the pasuk for sure means that it was backbreaking labor. Let's see the next pasuk. V'yimaru chayayim b'avodah kacha b'chayim b'avodah b'chalav b'sada. The second beforach for sure means backbreaking labor. It no longer means with luring them in with kind words. In the schar of those holy women that lived in that door in Mitzrayim, Nigalo Yisrael in Mitzrayim. It was only through their tzchusim that we got out of Mitzrayim. When they would go draw water from the well, or from the river, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mazmin mizamin lahem dogim ketanim b'kadeyim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu would make it that there would be fish that would automatically come up, that they would capture when they get buckets of water. Half of their bucket was full of water, but the other half had fish. And they would set up 2 pots. Rashi says shoifsos means when you put your pot on the flame, that's referred to with the word shvisa. They made warm water, which Rashi says was lirchoich ragle balein b'soda, to wash their husbands' feet, to comfort them. The achashel dogim, of course, would be to eat. Umarlichas etel balein l'soda, they would send them to their husbands in the field. Umarchitzas soisam, they would wash them. The sachas soisam, they would smear them. Umachilas oisan, they would give them to eat. Umashkos oisam, they would give their husbands to drink. And then that, of course, made their husbands feel good and relaxed and in the mood, and therefore v'niskakos lehen bein shvasayim. which Rashi says, Bein mitzrei hasodos mekaymes snuim. In between the different borders of the different fields, there were secluded areas where they were able to get intimate. What is a meitzar? It's kavula soda gavoya mikan v'chaveri mikan. So I guess everybody had, let's say, bushes around the perimeter of their field. So if there were two neighboring fields, there were two sets of bushes with a secluded area in between. Yeah. Oh, the chaveri mikan v'charitz b'emtza, right? So there was a bush on either side, and the charitz, like a little canal in between. Shenemar im tishkafun bein shvasayim. Shvatoyim. Bischar and bischar tishkafun bein shvatoyim, and the schar, what the women did to induce their husbands to puru zochu Yisrael lebizas Mitzrayim. It's that made a zoicha to bizas Mitzrayim. I guess Zarenu, the Kasbeinu, Yarbe Kachoil go together. So they worked on the Zarenu, Yarbe Kachoil, and that induced the Kasbeinu. Shenemar Hanfeyoino Nechbe the Kesef, the wings of the dove are covered with silver. They're very sell, be a rock. And we'll see Rashi what this means. The Yaakov Choretz. Zokt Rashi, Yoino is Yisrael. The Yoino is referring to Klal Yisrael. Shenemar Yinotzi Chamasi. Okay. And so everything is covered over with silver and gems. The Chivin Shemis Abrois, and when they became expecting, boys Levatein, they would come home. The Chivon Shemegias Man Moildein, and when the time came for them to give birth, Holchesh V'Yoldus Besada, where would they go give birth? In the fields, Tachas HaTapuach, under the apple tree. Shenemar Tachas HaTapuach Oivartich. Oivartich Rashi says, Lotesh Me'imach. Where was the woman naturally induced to give birth? Under the apple tree. There are those who say Tapuach is a remiss to Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Sheleach Mishmei Moraim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent Mishmei Moraim. Anything like it's an orb. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shelech Mishmei Moraim Misha Mankir Umashpir Oison Kichaya. Someone who should take care of these children and clean them and dress them up just like a yoledis, just like a maternity ward nurse. Shenemar let me read the pasuk inside. It's in the Daled. It says Umoildoisecha Biyoim Yoledis Oisach Loi Karas. Is it Sorech? Sorech Uvamayim Lo Yuchatzta. And Mamish can't see this. Let me see if I can zoom in on it more. They didn't cut. The umbilical Uvamayim Lo Yuchatzta Lamishi the Hemleach Lo Humlacht Vahachtel Lo Chutol. So that was not done like Hashem did, I guess. Okay. Umelakit law. Shnei agulin. They took two agulin. What is an agulin? Of Rashi stones. Okay, let me see if I can find Rashi. Let's see Rashi on this pasuk that we just learned. Rashi says, Mishaper, Menakers, Mishapers, Kemosh Oisin, Latinoikos, Viashavas of Rayam, to set their limbs up, they should be straight, because when they come out, they're all to kvetch, right? Lasaknon, Sheniskim Itzar Leda, that they get all out of joint from the birth. You didn't have in Mitzrayim a maternity ward nurse to cut the umbilical cord. You had no one to smooth out the skin. So it's a kikar. So they had two kikar like a kikar ugel, like a round kikar. So let me see where we are. It says over here, so they had two little, they had two kikar, and one was made out of oil, one was made out of honey. Shenemar v'yanikeyu devash miselo v'shemen v'chamus tzur. So in fact, it was stones, or it was actually. So it wasn't actually a chunk of honey. It was a rock that honey came out of. Okay. V'chivan shemakirin behen Mitzrayim boyin lahargon. As soon as the Mitzrayim they realized that the Mitzrayim were coming to kill these babies, they wanted to kill them. V'nasil anais happened to these Yidden. V'nivloin bekarka, these children became swallowed up in the ground, and they had an underground maternity ward. So what would the goyim do? Since they were under the ground, shvarim b'choshn al-gabon. Rachman talking about the Nazis, when the Yidden holed up in the sewers, they would flood the sewers to drown the Eden. They would plug up all the exits to the sewers, and then they would flood them. So what the Mitzrayim did, they would actually start plowing, so anything that was under the ground would get cut up. After the threat would pass away, would pass by, they finished. Then they would like bubble out of the ground, like the way grass penetrates the soil to grow. Again, the pasuk that we read in the Haggadah, you grew up, you sprouted up like grass. And once they became bigger, then they came in swarms. Adorim is not a swarm, they came in flocks to their homes. They became plentiful and they grew like we laid in the Haggadah. They came by Adei Adoyim, Zokt the Gemara, don't touch it Adei Adoyim. I'll think about the Adoyim, Ela be'idrei Adorim. So the Pashba, they come adorned, but we darshan, they come in flocks. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed himself by the Yam, who recognized what Hashem looked like? These children who Hashem personally cared for underground. Hey Mikirut Chila, these children recognized Rebbeinu Shalom first. Shenemar Zeh Keli Banveyu. So we'll stop here. Let's get ready to daven, and Mishnah will be Mamshech tomorrow. I'm following behind. A big letter. We'll have to push at 8 o'clock. 1 second. So the first year is going to be